showing vulnerability or sharing something with another boy that you're struggling with, you get made fun of, you get teased, you get called a girl, and yet we're supposed to grow up and be in relationships.
So, this is how someone's reputation can be destroyed without any due process. Brian Friedman, attorney for Justin Baldoni, has finally broken his silence after Judge Lyman's decision to dismiss their case. And according to him, it's far from fair. He claims that Blake Lively has already caused irreversible damage to Baldoni's reputation, and now the legal battle has entered a whole new phase. Justin Baldoni has just delivered a legal blow that Blake Lively won't be forgetting anytime soon. After the dramatic dismissal of his claims on June 9th, Baldoni's legal team is firing back with a powerful new complaint, one that exposes what they describe as some of the dirtiest tactics in Lively's playbook. What started as a Hollywood feud has now escalated into one of the most explosive courtroom dramas of the year, with shocking revelations that are impossible to ignore. The case's dismissal might have seemed like a victory for Blake Lively, as her team wasted no time celebrating and spinning headlines that made it appear as though justice had been served. But the truth is far more complicated. Judge Lyman clarified that Baldoni's legal team still has the right to amend their claims, specifically regarding breach of implied covenant and tortious interference with contract, with a new deadline set for June 23rd. Here's the real twist. The dismissal wasn't based on whether Blake's allegations were true or false, nor was it an official exoneration. Instead, it hinged on something far more technical: California's anti-SLAPP laws, which are designed to protect free speech, but can also make it extremely difficult for public figures to defend themselves against defamation. For those hoping to see justice for Justin Baldoni, this ruling felt like a devastating setback. The very laws designed to protect free speech have, in cases like Justin Baldoni's, created nearly insurmountable obstacles. These anti-SLAPP protections, while meant to prevent frivolous lawsuits, often end up shielding those who weaponize public platforms, giving bullies legal cover to inflict lasting damage. As Baldoni's attorney explained, the system can at times appear to enable continued victimization rather than provide justice. The court has permitted Baldoni's legal team to amend 4 of the 7 claims against Blake Lively, giving them the chance to present additional evidence and refine their arguments to strengthen the case. To succeed, however, they must meet an extraordinarily high standard, proving not only that Blake's statements were false, but that they were made with deliberate and malicious intent to harm him. At this early procedural stage, the bar is set so high it almost feels unfairly tilted against the accused. In the wake of the court's dismissal, many rushed to interpret it as a total victory for Lively, but the reality is far more nuanced. The court didn't rule that her claims were true, only that for now, there wasn't enough evidence to proceed with defamation. The larger issues, however, remain unresolved. Behind the scenes, speculation is mounting about deeper connections and potential conflicts of interest. Reports have surfaced that Judge Lyman's brother has personal and professional ties to Blake Lively, raising questions about whether his proximity to her or her projects may have had any influence, intentional or not, on the proceedings. Meanwhile, Blake Lively continues to dominate headlines, shaping the public narrative long before Baldoni's side has had a fair chance to respond. His legal team now suggests that several key incidents at the heart of her allegations may have been exaggerated or perhaps even fabricated to strengthen her position. With new evidence promised in the amended filing, Baldoni's camp is determined to challenge Lively's version of events and expose what they believe to be a carefully crafted narrative that may not withstand serious scrutiny. In today's world, it seems that anyone can make false accusations, hide behind legal privilege, and destroy someone's life without consequence. The legal system, instead of protecting the innocent, often reinforces the damage. What's even more shocking are new allegations of an untraceable smear campaign aimed directly at Justin Baldoni, claims his legal team is now determined to expose. While Blake Lively's side may be celebrating a temporary victory, the real fight is only just beginning. This case is far from over. California and New York's anti-SLAPP laws were originally crafted to safeguard free speech and prevent frivolous lawsuits, and in theory, that sounds noble. But in practice, they often operate as a shield for those in power. A barrier so strong that it prevents victims from ever having their voices heard. In situations like Baldoni's, these laws appear less like instruments of justice and more like fortresses protecting the privileged. To critics, this feels like a complete miscarriage of justice, an example of how narcissism, ego, and elitism have seeped into the legal system. The same laws meant to uphold fairness now seem to endanger anyone who dares to challenge falsehoods, from employers and public figures to ordinary people trying to defend their integrity. Justin's legal team insists that they didn't lose because their case was weak, but because the system itself is stacked against anyone bringing defamation claims. To win, they must prove not only that the statements made were false, but that those lies directly caused measurable harm, an almost impossible standard in a landscape designed to favor the accuser. As this legal and moral storm unfolds, one thing has become clear. The courtroom battle may be temporary, but the fight for truth and accountability is only just beginning. In today's world, it seems that anyone can make false accusations and hide behind legal privilege, while the system simply looks the other way. A person's entire life can be destroyed, and yet the law provides little recourse. It's already hard enough to defend your name under normal circumstances, but when the alleged smear campaign is, according to Blake Lively's team, completely untraceable, it becomes like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. This all stems from a law passed in the wake of the Me Too movement. Judge Lyman ruled that Lively's sexual harassment allegations were legally protected under those statutes and therefore couldn't serve as grounds for a defamation claim. That June 9th courtroom twist was a showstopper, but the real story might lie behind the scenes. Yes, Justin Baldoni's defamation claims were dismissed, and Blake Lively's team wasted no time turning it into a media victory lap. But before we call it a win, there's far more beneath the surface. More layers than an Oscar-worthy screenplay. And at the center of this growing intrigue is a surprising connection. Blake's professional ties to Judge Lyman's brother. Doug Lyman, a respected Hollywood director, has previously collaborated with Blake on major projects. That detail alone has fueled speculation and raised eyebrows. Was there more than just coincidence at play? Did family loyalty, industry influence, or quiet connections sway the tone of the courtroom drama? Justin's team isn't directly making the accusation, but the whispers are deafening. Some insiders are even suggesting that Doug Lyman's Hollywood clout may have subtly shaped the narrative or influenced the atmosphere around the case. The timing, the relationships, the outcomes, it all feels just a little too intertwined. If even a fraction of these rumors hold weight, this case could take a shocking turn and expose a web of influence few expected. For now, one thing is clear. The surface story of legal victories and dismissed claims is only the beginning. Behind closed doors, a far more complex battle is unfolding, one where reputations, relationships, and truth itself hang in the balance. In a world where the media can publish anything and privilege can shield the powerful, justice has never felt more fragile. There are no real consequences for making false accusations, and that's what makes this story so unsettling. What if the narratives about Justin Baldoni's behavior weren't organic at all, but carefully shaped, or worse, fabricated from within? A plot twist worthy of Hollywood itself, a family-driven strategy designed to strengthen both a legal and public relations offensive. Justin's team hasn't directly named anyone, but their insinuations are sharp enough to make their suspicions crystal clear. The real problem? Proving such a scheme in court is nearly impossible. You can't subpoena whispers, and you can't cross-examine a narrative spun in the shadows. Blake Lively didn't exactly win. The court simply ruled that Justin couldn't yet prove defamation, and that's a crucial distinction. Still, Lively's camp seized on the dismissal, portraying it as total vindication. Baldoni's team, however, isn't backing down. They're digging relentlessly for evidence, determined to expose the truth. Determined to expose the truth. And if even a fraction of this alleged conspiracy proves credible, it could turn the entire case on its head, transforming Blake's supposed victory into a devastating liability. The frustration is palpable. Across social media, supporters have pointed out how major outlets are framing the story as if Blake had triumphed completely when in reality, the legal fight is far from over. And here's where things get even wilder. Blake didn't stop at the courtroom. She took her so-called win on a full-blown PR tour, using influence, visibility, and timing to solidify public perception long before the next legal move could be made. Soon after the dismissal, Blake was spotted attending a glamorous Chanel event, smiling for the cameras, basking in media attention, and embodying the image of victory. Dressed impeccably and surrounded by flashing lights, she seemed to be celebrating a win that, in truth, hadn't been earned. Because here's the kicker. Not a single one of her allegations against Justin Baldoni has been proven. Not one. Behind the glitz, beneath the headlines, and beyond the red carpet appearances, the battle continues. For Justin, this isn't about reputation anymore. It's about truth, in a world where image too often outweighs evidence. Blake Lively didn't just make allegations, she took it a step further. She filed a CRD complaint, which under the law is privileged. That means no one can sue her for anything written in that document, no matter how damaging it might be. And with that shield of privilege, there she was, basking in the spotlight, surrounded by headlines calling her a hero. The media devoured the story like candy, eager to frame her as the brave, victorious woman who stood up and won. But here's the truth. This isn't over. Not even close. Lively released a statement on Instagram, thanking organizations for their support and expressing love and gratitude for the many who stood by me. She wrapped it all in language about advocacy and appreciation, presenting herself as a survivor's champion. But many saw it differently, as a calculated PR move designed to cement her narrative before the real legal fight even resumed. And of course, the Hollywood chorus wasn't far behind. Celebrities like Amber Tamblyn and others rushed to praise her courage, flooding social media with messages of support. To critics, it felt eerily familiar, echoing the early days of the Amber Heard saga, where public sentiment and celebrity endorsement replaced evidence and due process. And we all know how that story ended. Now let's flip the script, because Justin Baldoni isn't backing down, not even a little. His attorney, Brian Friedman, has broken his silence following the dismissal, calling out what he describes as Blake Lively's false victory. He reminded everyone that 4 of the 7 claims in the lawsuit are still very much alive. Friedman stated clearly that Baldoni's legal team will move forward with the same confidence we had when Miss Lively and her cohorts initiated this battle. In other words, this is far from finished. The legal and moral tug-of-war between Justin and Blake is only just beginning, and if Friedman's tone is any indication, the next chapter could be the most explosive one yet. And here's the real kicker. Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni's attorney, has promised that new evidence is on the way. Evidence that he says will showcase additional proof and refined allegations. In plain terms, that means Blake Lively's so-called victory lap might come to a very sudden stop. And then, there's the deposition. Yes, Blake will have to sit down and answer questions under oath. No cameras, no filters, no PR spin, just the truth. Sources say she even attempted to control who would be allowed to depose her, which legally isn't how this works. Nice try, perhaps, but the rules of the courtroom don't bend to celebrity influence. Now, stepping back, this entire ordeal isn't just about Justin versus Blake. It's a much bigger commentary on how Hollywood, the media, and social platforms have merged into a new kind of courtroom. One where public opinion often replaces real evidence, and perception outweighs fact. Blake's team has effectively placed Justin Baldoni on trial in this court of public opinion, painting him as guilty long before anything has been proven. And the media? They've played along willingly, amplifying the story with headlines designed for clicks rather than clarity. What's truly frustrating and heartbreaking yet is the broader damage this causes. Not only does it impact Baldoni's reputation and livelihood, but it also undermines genuine survivors of harassment and abuse. When stories become so tangled in celebrity spin and manipulation, the credibility of real victims suffers. Each contested case like this makes it harder for those who truly need justice to be believed. At its core, this situation exposes a darker truth, one that stretches far beyond these 2 Hollywood names. It's about how the legal system can be bent, how media narratives can be weaponized, and how easily reputation can be destroyed in an age where outrage moves faster than facts. In many ways, this is Blake Lively's ultimate playbook, a masterclass in how to use privilege, power, and the legal system itself to your advantage. But as Friedman and Baldoni's team prepare to strike back with new evidence and depositions, this so-called Hollywood victory may be short-lived. Because once the truth starts unfolding under oath, no amount of red carpet glamour can hide what's really been happening behind the scenes. And here's the irony. If Blake Lively truly believed in her accusations, wouldn't she want this to go all the way? Wouldn't she welcome the opportunity to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that everything she said was true? Instead, her team seems far more focused on managing perception, spinning half-truths, feeding headlines, and letting public opinion do the heavy lifting that evidence simply can't. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's fight continues, not just to clear his name, but to restore truth itself. His attorney, Brian Friedman, captured it perfectly when he said, "With the facts on our side, we will march forward with the same confidence that we had when Miss Lively and her cohorts initiated this battle." That wasn't just legal rhetoric. It was a promise. A declaration that they won't stop until every detail is brought into the light, no matter how much spin stands in their way. Because let's be honest, Blake Lively already got what she wanted. The headlines, the sympathy, and full control of the narrative before Justin even had a chance to respond. While she basks in her moment of glory, he's been forced to fight uphill against a machine that thrives on spectacle. And yet the war is far from over. While Lively parades her so-called victory across social media, even referencing her pain from a retaliatory lawsuit while linking to women's rights organizations, Baldoni and his team are preparing for the next round. She's playing to the crowd, turning a complicated legal situation into a symbol of empowerment, even as the facts remain unproven. Her PR team deserves credit. They've turned a narrow procedural dismissal into a movement. It's PR brilliance, no question. PR brilliance, no question. Within hours, the narrative had flipped from a legal stalemate to a feminist triumph. The message was clear. Blake won. Justin lost. End of story. Except it's not the end of the story. Behind the glitz, this remains a legal gray area, one that Lively's camp masterfully transformed into a gold mine of publicity. It's PR 101. When life hands you lemons, make a press release and make it shine. But the cost of that spin? Justin Baldoni's reputation dismantled before his case could even be heard. And that's the tragedy of it all. Because while the world applauds Lively's performance, Baldoni's side insists the truth still hasn't been told. And if you thought this story was over, think again. The real war has just begun. By aligning herself with advocacy groups and high-profile allies, Blake has managed to build an almost impenetrable narrative shield. But here's the kicker. That shield only holds up so long as nobody scratches beneath the surface. The moment someone starts digging, the cracks could begin to show. That's why the rush to declare victory looks suspicious. If she truly believed her version of events, why the hurry to celebrate? If she were so confident in her truth, wouldn't she welcome the chance to let a full trial and then a final judgment settle it once and for all? Instead, what we're watching looks a lot more like a PR playbook than a courtroom resolution. Celebrities don't need evidence to get headlines. File a privileged CRD complaint, leak the outline to the press, and watch the story be reported as gospel. The narrative becomes the reality for a lot of people, and the person on the other end can be left destroyed without ever getting their day in court. If your goal is to ruin someone's life and reputation, you could hardly ask for a better method. Publicity plus privilege, near automatic public conviction. Right now, we're seeing a full-scale PR blitz. Instagram posts, red carpet appearances, Chanel events, celebrity endorsements, all designed to drown out the messy fact that the legal fight is far from over. But Justin still has his day in court. Friedman's promise of new, refined evidence suggests this so-called victory lap might be a very short detour before a far more chaotic finish line. So yes, the narrative shield looks strong, but only if we never look closer. And that's exactly why this story isn't finished. Because once the facts start being tested under oath, image and spin don't hold up for long. The celebration may be loud now, but don't mistake noise for proof. The war for the truth is still underway. This is how someone's reputation can be destroyed without a shred of due process. It starts with a media circus, predictable, performative, and perfectly choreographed. The mainstream outlets jumped at the chance to crown Blake Lively as a symbol of justice, framing the dismissal of Baldoni's claims as a decisive victory, as if court cases end at halftime. Bold headlines painted her as the hero, while the crucial detail, that the case is still ongoing, was buried somewhere in the fine print. It's a masterclass in narrative control, and Blake's team executed it flawlessly. She didn't just win sympathy, she owned the storyline. But here's where things start to unravel. Independent outlets, the ones not bound by Hollywood's PR machinery, aren't buying the glossy version. They've been dissecting Blake's claims piece by piece, and the picture emerging isn't nearly as polished. Why did her accusations suddenly surface right when the film's publicity campaign was gaining traction? Coincidence? Hardly. This entire case hinges on allegations of false accusations, retaliation, and an alleged smear campaign, one her own team conveniently describes as untraceable. Then come the internet sleuths, the digital detectives who refuse to look away. Armed with screenshots, archived clips, and a relentless sense of curiosity, they've been cross-referencing everything from timelines to public statements. And what they've uncovered raises serious questions. Contradictions, inconsistencies, and strategic silences, all pointing to a narrative that looks more stitched together than sincere. Meanwhile, something unexpected is happening online. Support for Justin Baldoni is quietly but steadily growing. It's a modern-day David versus Goliath, Hollywood's golden girl versus a man who dared to challenge the system. And while Blake's PR team works overtime to cast her as the brave underdog, a growing part of the public isn't convinced. Because in today's world, truth often takes a back seat to perception, and perception, once weaponized, can destroy faster than any verdict ever could. If Justin Baldoni never gets the chance to clear his name in a full trial, that would be a travesty. Enter Brian Friedman, Justin's legal bulldog, a lawyer who doesn't back down. He's already working to amend Baldoni's complaint to meet anti-SLAPP requirements, and 4 of the original 7 claims remain intact. These aren't small quibbles. They cut to the core of Blake Lively's credibility. Friedman's confidence isn't empty bravado. It's tactical and appears to be backed by evidence the public hasn't seen yet. As Friedman put it, the case is about false accusations of sexual harassment and retaliation and a non-existent smear campaign, which Miss Lively's own team conveniently describes as untraceable because they cannot prove what never happened. So what's next? For Justin, the fight is about navigating a hostile legal landscape. Anti-SLAPP rules are frustrating, yes, but they're not the end of the road. With Friedman at the helm, Baldoni's side is pushing forward, and he's signaled more evidence is coming. If you thought the courtroom drama had been intense so far, buckle up. We may be headed for revelations that go well beyond text messages, and he said, she said. We could be looking at game-changing disclosures capable of flipping the narrative entirely. Let's be clear about the current posture of the case. While the court dismissed the defamation-related claims for now, it expressly invited Baldoni's team to amend 4 of the 7 counts. That keeps significant legal exposure alive. Then there's the looming deposition. Blake Lively will have to testify under oath. No PR spin, no Instagram captions. That process can cut through the rhetoric and expose inconsistencies. What role did associates or family members play? Why did the allegations surface when they did, perfectly timed with the film's PR cycle? And if Lively is so certain, why has parts of the story shifted over time? Depositions and documentary evidence have a way of piercing polished narratives. If Baldoni's team can marshal solid proof and persuasive witnesses, they could reduce Blake's PR fortress to a house of cards. Once that structure starts to fall, the fallout can be swift and decisive, legally and publicly. This isn't just a legal spat between 2 A-listers. It's a high-stakes battle that could shred careers and leave reputations in tatters. Justin Baldoni is essentially fighting for his professional life. His name, future projects, and ability to stand in Hollywood all hang in the balance. Hollywood doesn't hand out second chances lightly, especially when a scandal is splashed across every headline. But Blake Lively isn't immune to risk either. She may be enjoying a moment in the moral spotlight, but if these allegations don't hold up and the cracks keep widening, her legacy could take a serious hit. My sense is she may ultimately withdraw and frame the episode as a win for victims and advocacy, a PR-friendly exit that protects the narrative. If that happens, history might remember her not as an icon of genuine advocacy, but as someone who weaponized a movement for personal gain. Not exactly the image a luxury brand wants for its ambassador. Enter Brian Friedman, Justin's legal bulldog. He's not backing down. 4 of the original claims remain viable, and Friedman's confidence feels strategic, not performative. He's hinted at bombshell evidence to come and is methodically working to amend the complaint to survive anti-SLAPP hurdles. If Baldoni's team can produce solid documentary proof and persuasive testimony, this whole narrative could flip, turning Lively's PR fortress into a house of cards. And don't forget the deposition. Lively will have to answer questions under oath, without the safety net of Instagram captions or crafted sound bites. Depositions slice through PR polish. They force memory, timing, and motive into the light. Memory, timing, and motive into the light. Why did the allegations surface when they did? What role did associates or family play? Why have parts of the story shifted? Those are the kinds of questions that can blow holes in a polished public narrative. Meanwhile, the media circus has already done enormous damage. Mainstream outlets rush to crown a winner, packaging the dismissal as a clear victory and burying the nuance in the fine print. Independent outlets and online sleuths, however, have started pulling the story apart, highlighting timeline gaps, contradictions, and coincidences that mainstream coverage glossed over. The result? Grassroots support for Justin has quietly swelled into a David versus Goliath movement, and public sentiment is fracturing. This all matters far beyond 2 celebrities. Each high-profile, contested case chips away at the credibility of genuine survivors and the broader accountability movement. When powerful figures turn allegations into PR tools, when privileged actors weaponize legal protections and media